It's Tuesday, January 21. In the headlines, the National Health Fund promotes early detection of cervical cancer by expanding screening subsidies. Thousands of Jamaicans to receive National Housing Trust refunds this week. In business news, low quality in skills slowing the business outsource processing sector. Regionally, Barbados' Prime Minister Mia Mottley urges the region to use culture to drive development and growth. And in sports, stakeholders are calling for more use of the Trelawney Multipurpose Stadium. And fire at Queen's Park Oval in Trinidad and Tobago. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. More than 2.7 million prescriptions were filled with cards from the National Health Fund for 700,000 Jamaicans in 2024. The National Health Fund says this is due in part to cardholders having access to more cash for medication. The NHF administrators are reporting that subsidies for over 600 drug items used to treat 13 of the 22 conditions covered under the NHF card were increased. In addition, the agency says changes to the NHF and Jamaica Drug for the Elderly program drug lists were implemented, including adjustments to drug limits, label names, and the addition of new active pharmaceutical ingredients. In a release, the NHF explains that in 2024, it provided $9.1 billion in subsidies for those cardholders after processing 4.8 million claims, with the agency covering an average of 50% of medication costs. The NHF also expanded benefits for screening with the introduction of subsidies for pap smears. Women aged 21 to 64 are now offered a $1,300 subsidy for pap smear tests, promoting early detection of cervical cancer. Additionally, the NHF says subsidy of $1,600 for the PSA test was expanded to include all Jamaican men aged 40 to 75. 8 schools are now part of the government's Financial Management Information System, or GFMIS. Permanent Secretary in the Education Ministry, Dr. Kassan Troop, says the system will improve accounting transparency and make it easier to publicly report on how government funds are used in education. The move is part of a pilot project involving 50 schools, all of which now have internet connectivity. More in this report.
At a press conference on Friday, the Education Transformation Oversight Committee revealed progress in training school staff on the Government Financial Management Information System. Dr. Troop announced at EWI's regional headquarters in St. Andrew that 194 school personnel and the 40 regional financial and ICT staff have been trained to use the system. She explained that the system aims to ease the burden on principals by removing accounting responsibilities from their duties.
The aim of this really is to remove the demands on our principals to do accounting work. So right now the principals, especially at our primary school, 766 of them, they have to account for the financial resources. And as Dr. Stokes alluded to, we have to remove that from them so they can function as instructional leaders in the true sense of that word. And so we are moving with some minor successes this term. We have all 50 schools now trained and ready. We have built them out to make sure that they have the broadband support. We have provided them with the technology. And Jamaica, I can tell you that 8 schools are now on the government financial management system, ready to utilize GIFMIS through our Accountant General's department.
Dr. True also shared that the ministry rolled out an education management information system EMIS, which was soft launched on December 18.
So, of course, we have to do the deployment of our resources properly. And one of the things we are doing is to ensure that we have real-time data to plan and to respond. And in so doing, we have rolled out for the first time. And I'm happy for this because I've been in the ministry from 2009 as an education officer. And this was on the table, Dr. Stokes, for us to have an education management information system. And today, Jamaica, we have had a soft launch of this. We're doing proof of concept. We have our schools updated, 935 schools data on the system, over 17,905 teachers data, over 452,000 students data uploaded with the help of our technical staff members in the Ministry of Education.
The Permanent Secretary further explained how the EMIS will support the ministry and the teachers.
Jamaica will be able to see if our students are at school. And I know my minister will speak to that later because she has us under pressure developing a guideline to manage absenteeism in school. And this goes hand in hand with this software. We are going to be able to manage behavior better. We're going to see the infractions live. We're going to know what's happening and so we can respond better. And most importantly, we're going to be able to track performance in a standardized way in our system to see what is happening. And the assessment policy is being developed to guide the standardized entering of data in our platform.
Reporting for the news on PBCJ, I am Danita Rodney.
Thanks, Danita. Jamaicans who contribute to the National Housing Trust are entitled to receive a regular contribution refund in the 8th year after the contribution was made. According to the NHT, this means if you had contributed to the NHT in 2017, you may now apply for a refund of those contributions and for any contributions made prior to that year for which you had not received a refund. More than 27,000 applicants have been processed already. Assistant General Manager for Corporate Communications and Public Affairs at the NHT gave some insight while speaking at a JIS think tank. Prospective refund applicants can apply online at the NHT's website, nht.gov.jm, or via their online portal at nht.gov.jm. Assistant General Manager for Corporate Communications and Public Affairs, Mr. Dwayne Burbick, says persons must be wary of fictitious communication.
NHT only sends out 2 types of communication relating to refund applications. One, to say that it was successfully processed, and you can either check your banking account or check with your remittance agency if that was your choice for collecting it. Or 2, if there's a challenge with the application, the communication will indicate that we were not able to process it and you should reach out to the NHT directly. In no instance will the NHT ask you to submit any information via email or click on any link.
He says there are 2 options to collect the funds.
The first is credit to your bank account, and during the refund application process, you will be asked to indicate your financial institution of choice, your bank of choice, and to put in the correct banking information. And when we speak about errors, that's one of the errors that we sometimes see customers make, especially where customers may have more than one bank account. We do find that sometimes they use Bank A, but it's the account number for Bank B. Another thing you have to bear in mind as well in making the application is the type of account, whether it's a savings account or checking account.
He says second option is via a remittance agency.
And we have an arrangement with 3 remittance agencies: VM, Money Transfer, JMMB, Money Transfer Services, and JN Money Services. For contributions that are collected via these channels, there's a nominal fee ranging from, I think, $160 at its lowest to $200 at its highest, that these remittance agencies do charge for collecting the refund via those channels. So something the customers must bear in mind when putting in their application.
Meanwhile, NHD's Assistant General Manager for Compliance, Damian McNally, says the changing of a person's names remains an issue.
And I can tell you one of the major issues that we have is that when persons, especially when they are married or they are quote-unquote unmarried, and the contribution would have been filed using one name, and the application is made in another, either with either hyphen or a double last name, so to speak. And what our records is so that there's no customer information file record found. So we say to persons where it is that there's a name change, we encourage them to engage in National Housing Trust to update their customer information file, update our records, and so when it is that they make the application, the information is aligned to what the record is. And similarly, we encourage them to update the records with their employers as well, because a lot of the time, persons are married or no longer married, and that information is not changed when it is that they file, when the returns is submitted, the records on the annual returns are submitted, and it creates some delay when it is that, they make that application.
He says there is no deadline for applications. The Trinidad and Tobago Blind Welfare Association is calling for a shift in how disabilities are perceived and addressed, starting with the language used to describe them. Executive Officer Kenneth Stewart emphasized this point while addressing parents and caregivers at a disabilities workshop on Saturday. The workshop aimed to reshape the way the special needs community engages with the broader society. More details in this Living Healthy report.
Special needs parent Shanda Deo Bekaru, founder of Tiny Fingers Daycare Preparatory Center, is using her journey to empower others. After 22 years of navigating the challenges of raising a special needs child, she hosted a workshop aimed at supporting parents and caregivers of children with special needs, focusing on their struggles, victories, and the importance of self-care.
My son Aidan, he has multiple disabilities. When I had him at the age of 22, the disabilities that was known back then was blind, deaf, and cerebral palsy. Now there are so many other disabilities. Like my son has visual impairment. He has autism. He has global delayed development.
Reflecting on her early struggles and lack of resources, Mrs. Dio Bekaru emphasized the need for a strong community and networks to provide support and practical advice tailored to individual needs.
I have been in this for 22 years, and some of the challenges that I faced back then, parents are still facing it. And the only way that we can make a change is the special needs community themselves, because we always say we want inclusion, but we don't put ourselves out there to be included. So this is my way of saying, okay, so here's what. Let's see if we can, I know it's difficult for special needs to come out and interact with the typical. Let's see if we can interact with the special needs.
Time now for the business report with Denise Williams.
Welcome to today's Business Report. I'm Denise Williams, here to bring you the stories shaping the financial world and guiding your journey to smarter business decisions. Let's dive into the top headlines. Alternative investment company Cygnus Credit successfully closed the largest public perpetual preference share raise on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. The company received 1,156 orders that amounted to 1.71 billion Jamaican dollars and US 22.05 million respectively for the perpetual offer, which has no maturity date, allowing for long-term capital placement. The offer had two classes of preference shares, both of which were oversubscribed. Class H JMD preference share yielded 10% and was oversubscribed by 43%, while the Class 1 US dollar preference shares yielded 8% was oversubscribed by approximately 10%. Cygnus offers credit to various industries, including manufacturing, distribution, financial services, energy, industrial, construction, transportation, infrastructure, and business services. Gloria Henry, a former president of the Global Services Industry Association, has pointed to a slowdown in the rate of growth in the BPO sector. Speaking to RJR News, she points to the challenges involved in getting the quality of employees needed to serve certain accounts. She says, however, that the Ministries of Industry, Investment and Commerce and Education and Youth are aware of the problem and have reactivated the Global Services Skills Council. The Bank of Jamaica intervened in the foreign exchange market with another US $40 million on Monday morning. The move followed its US $40 million intervention last Friday, which was significantly below the market demand for US $85 million. The central bank instructed authorized dealers to sell the money to end users at no more than J20 cents above the buying rate. The minimum bid size, or the minimum amount which could be applied for, was US $100,000. For the trading period ended January 20, 2025, these were the most actively traded stocks. Toll road operator Trans-Jamaica Highway Limited, with 1,367,300 units traded, represented 12.54% of market sales volume. Alternative energy provider Wigton Energy Limited, with 1,300,361 units traded, represented 11.92% of market sales volume. Advertising agency and real estate holding firm Kentire Holdings J.A. Limited, with 1,175,826 units traded, amounted to 10.78% of market sales volume. We now shift our focus to the Forex market rate set by the Bank of Jamaica. On January 20, 2025, the Bank of Jamaica reported US $77.14 million was purchased and US $88.48 million was sold by Forex traders. Traders earned 96 cents per dollar in profit, selling the US at $156.99 and buying the US at $156.03. The Canadian dollar netted Forex traders $1.85 per transactions, with selling at $109.69 and buying at $107.84. The British pound yielded Forex traders $1.18 in profits, with selling at $192.32 and buying at $191.14. For our credit report tip of the day, starting a business after unemployment and debt feels like climbing a mountain with a boulder strapped to your back. But here's the truth. You've got what it takes to turn your situation into a success story. Here's a roadmap to help you get started. Present yourself like a professional. Use a professional business address, email, and phone number. Perception is power. Show lenders you mean business. Also, use a business credit card. Start small and use it wisely. Pay it off. This builds your business credit profile step by step. And that wraps up today's business report. I am Denise Williams, reminding you that every financial decision is a step towards your future. Until next time, stay focused, stay informed, and keep striving for success. See you soon.
In regional news, Barbados' Prime Minister and CARICOM Chair, Mia Mottley, is highlighting the potential of Caribbean culture to drive sustainable development and economic growth in the region. Speaking at the 16th Self-Reliance Rafosa Lecture in Suriname, themed Culture as a Catalyst for Innovation and Sustainable Development of the Caribbean Community, Motley described culture as the Caribbean's heart, history, and hope. She celebrated the region's rich cultural heritage, including carnival, cricket, reggae, soca, and road tennis, while emphasizing the need to foster a humanizing culture to support migrants and migration across the region.
We see the transformative force of culture as having 4 key roles, therefore, in the transformation of the Caribbean region. 1, culture as a catalytic driver of economies. Well, we know that naturally. 2, culture as a driver of sustainable development. 3, building the values of our people to strengthen individuals and families, to enhance productivity, to resolve conflicts, and everything that goes in between. And finally, strengthening our democracy and our community resilience as a result of shared heritage and culture and shared facts. We are a region of migrants. And if ever there was a region to lead the world in helping to settle how we deal with this most vexatious of issues, it is the Caribbean region that must lead the world on it. We stand here as children of migrants. And you heard me say earlier that the percentage of those who survived the genocide literally perpetrated against indigenous Indians in the region is minuscule. So that in almost every instance, whether it is 2 generations, 4 generations, 6 generations, or in the case of the Goodins in 1650 from Barbados, 8 or 10 generations of persons, we're all migrants.
Deliberations are ongoing in St. Lucia's National Climate Change Plan, a critical document aimed at reducing emissions. On Friday, the Ministry of Sustainable Development convened the National Climate Change Committee to review and validate the island's 3rd nationally determined contributions. The details in this report.
St. Lucia is setting the example by taking actions to limit greenhouse gas emissions that contribute to global warming and climate change. Sustainable Development Minister Sean Edward argues that while St. Lucia is one of the smallest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions, it must do its part to reduce its carbon footprint for the betterment of its citizens and the planet. He spoke on the sidelines of a National Climate Change Committee validation meeting of its 3rd nationally determined contributions held on Friday at the Bay Gardens Hotel in Rodney Bay.
Climate change is a problem that we have to grapple with as a small island developing state, and it is also a global issue. And as much as we are not the culprits in terms of gas emission to distort the balance of the planet, sadly, we are the ones who have to bear the brunt of the adverse effects of climate change with unpredictable weather patterns, severe droughts, excessive rainfall and things of that sort, and they impact us very negatively, not just from an environmental standpoint, but also economically. But we have a responsibility, a moral obligation as a small island developing state, notwithstanding we're not the main culprits, but we have to lend to the global efforts to reverse the trends of climate change and greenhouse gas emissions.
St. Lucia's 3rd nationally determined contribution, NDC 3.0, focuses on energy, transport and forestry.
We know that trees are able to capture carbon in the atmosphere, that of course if you capture it, you are reducing the issue of global warming and climate change. So we've added forests and we've also added industry, specifically the cooling sector when we're looking at air conditions and the gases that are air conditioning units and the gases that are emitted in this regard. So we're looking at an even more ambitious NDC 3.0, estimated at $247 million across those sectors, and we are having our target to be up to 2035.
Climate Analytics is providing support to St. Lucia to revise NDC targets.
The energy sector is beginning to do quite well. We see a massive reduction in emissions because of a higher uptake of renewable energy. The new target might actually reach somewhere between 7 and 46% of reduction compared to 2010. The transport sector has problems, so there are too many vehicles on the island and too few of them are electric. That means that this sector is not going to meet any targets anytime soon, unfortunately. But that is going to be worked on as well. And then the others we are looking at are forestry. Your forests are still beautiful and doing well. The emissions from that sector are still negative. And we are also looking at ozone depleting substances, which is also a very strong climate pollutant, and will devise plans from the government to reduce those emissions.
In sports, Trelawny's residents are calling for increased use of the Trelawny Multipurpose Stadium to nurture young talent. President of the Trelawny Football Association, Desmond Simpson, is reported saying he would like to see the facility used to host more football and other sports. President of the Trelawny Cricket Association, Chester Anderson, would prefer to see the facility hosting major international cricket tournaments. Mr. Simpson says the TFA hosted their Major League finals at the stadium, and since then, other football entities have shown interest in using it. In September 2024, the Trelawny Multipurpose Stadium opened its gates to Inter-Secondary Schools Sports Association's schoolboy football for the first time. However, Mr. Anderson believes that although it is a multi-purpose stadium, the facility that was developed for cricket and utilized for local games needs more international games. And in sporting news from the region, a fire broke out at the Queen's Park Oval on Monday morning, causing damage to the top tier of the Shell Scotiabank stand on the northwestern side of the Oval. TTT's Sunil Lala reports from Trinidad and Tobago.
Smoke was seen emanating from the top tier of the Shell Scotiabank stand at the Queen's Park Oval around 10:30 on Monday morning. The fire is said to have started in the Shell corporate box, which, according to President of the Queen's Park Cricket Club, Dr. Nigel Camacho, suffered from substantial damage.
Officer Sampson said there's still some heat around, so they're continuing to investigate that there may actually be some fire left in the air-conditioned ducting. So they're taking no chances, and they're actually doing a piece-by-piece search of the area. So I want to actually congratulate the fire services for the very rapid response. They were here within minutes of GM Mohammed calling fire services, and they were here quickly and on the scene and got things quickly under control and probably saved a lot of damage from happening.
At least 3 fire tenders were called to the scene, with a Wassa water truck also called in as a backup. Dr. Camacho said the fire was mostly contained to the Shell corporate box, with some damage to the NLCB's corporate booth.
So no injuries, nothing to report. The place was empty, and it seems that the fire started, and it started at around 10:30, looks like, and it quickly spread into the air-conditioned ducting, and it was quickly brought under control by the fire services. Just to the top floor. In fact, it's limited more or less in the area of the Shell corporate box. So there's a little lateral spread to the NLCB box, and there's no damage to the Scotia.
The QPCC president, though, assured that the fire would not affect any upcoming matches at the Oval, including the Caribbean Premier League later this year.
No, that very far from that. There is substantial damage to one of the corporate booths, but it doesn't affect anything much. And I think that they will have to do their own assessment and determine, how they're going to get things repaired.
As for the damages to the booths, he said that will be taken up following the investigation from fire officials.
Until the investigative work is done and they actually determine the cause of fire, then it will be up to the speculators to look and see how insurance will handle the different areas from the damage.
Sonolala, TTT News.
And that's it for the news on PBCJ. You can follow us on our social media platforms at PBCJamaica. Thanks so much for watching.